What's up, everybody, and welcome in to another edition of the Sitdown. As always, we're presented by Barstool Sports, and we're here live, Midtown Manhattan today. We get the brand new studios here. It looks a little different from when I was last here, but it's nice to have these amenities to do the show in. It's Christmas week, and I wanted to let my hair down. I don't have that much hair. I know this guy, he don't have much hair either. But I wanted to let my hair down today, this week. It's Christmas week, and I thought I've always wanted to do this interview. Really, ever since I came back to Barstool in September, these guys are the first guys you generally see when you come in here. And with the growth of Barstool, one of the things that's necessary now is security. And I felt like these guys were always kind of interesting when I came in because unlike everybody here, they work per se with Barstool, but they're not in our world necessarily, but they kind of are now. And what I learned is they have both very interesting stories. They're both longtime members of the most prestigious police department in America. They have wild stories, and now they protect essentially Dave Portnoy, right?
That's correct,
Mike.
That's correct.
So we're going to speak to Pat, who is, I mean, just to be honest, you're the old guy of the group.
What's that?
You're the old guy.
Yes, I'm the older guy in the group. That's right.
I mean, you were in the department before I was born, I believe, which we'll get into.
I don't know if I want to hear that.
So what we're going to kind of do is we've talked to the police, we've talked to the FBI, the DEA, ICE. We've talked to every alphabet group there is. And now we're going to talk to the NYPD. I want to kind of start with the beginning, guys, before we get into some of the Barstool stuff, because I'm going to guess, and I'll just ask you this, yes or no. Before you knew and you were connected to Barstool, did you know what Barstool was?
I knew what it was from the pizza reviews, to be honest. I
Really?
used to watch them all the time, yeah.
It's interesting. I always notice anytime I bring up Barstool with anyone, that's generally the first thing someone says. If they don't know what the universe is, they always say, I see Portnoy doing pizza reviews. So that's interesting. But Pat, I want to start with you because you are kind of the older guy of the group. You're the most veteran, I guess you could say. Now, you guys are all prestigious members of the department. You're from Brooklyn. You were born in Brooklyn.
Yes.
You moved to Staten Island, which a lot of Brooklynites did in that time period. You got into the department in 1986.
Yep.
And your first precinct was what, the 62nd?
I started in the Lower East Side. We covered the 7th and 9th precinct when I was in training on the Lower East Side of Manhattan.
So you're there on this show, you're there in the heyday of John Gotti.
Yes.
Tell me about that. Tell me about some of those experiences.
Well, honestly, in the Lower East Side at the time, it was like the heroin capital of New York City.
Yeah.
There was lines to get heroin. Literally, there was buildings. They just sold hypodermic needles. Mm-hmm. And, you ran into a lot of people with serious drug issues. You had to be careful. It was the start of the AIDS epidemic and the crack epidemic. You had a lot of people carrying hypodermic needles, no covers on them. You had to be careful when you searched them. If you got poked, they used the needles over and over, or they shared them, and, you could get sick.
Let me ask you, I'm curious about this, and I'll get, Mike, your opinion. What time period do you think was worse? This current time period or then? From a crime and just overall negative standpoint?
I think it's very comparable, but I think in the late 80s, early 90s with the crack epidemic you was getting over 2,000 homicides a year in New York City.
Wow.
I mean, it's bad now too. I feel it's very dirty out there on the streets, and it's not, things aren't being enforced as should be.
I'll ask you both, and I'll ask you, Mike. I mean, you're Irish, right?
Yes.
Pat? Mike, you're Italian.
I'm Italian.
You grew up in Canarsie. You're from Brooklyn. Your first job out of the academy was the 6'2", right?
6'2" in
Bath Avenue, which a lot of our people know of. I guess I'll ask you both. Why did you become cops? Like, what was the draw there? Did you have family in that?
My story was interesting. When I was maybe 20 years old, I had dropped out of college, and I was taking stock in myself and said, what do I want to do with myself? I had a bullshit job that was a never, it was a dead end. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what? The police test came out. Me and all my friends signed up for it. And then we went out. The test was being given on a Saturday morning. We all went out on a Friday night. And Saturday morning, we were all beeping each other because there was no cell phones. We were beeping, who's going? Nobody went except me. I went to Canarsie High School. I took the police test, and that's how I became a cop. There was no family. There was no It was
just a good civil service job.
It was just a test that I saw they were giving it. and I took it, and it wound up being probably the best decision I ever made in my life.
Was there ever a draw to the streets? I mean,
Well-
that's a world you live. I remember you told me about like the 80s in
Yeah.
Brooklyn, right? Bensonhurst, those places.
And-
You see those kind of guys. Was there ever a draw to that?
I growing up in Canarsie, it was like all Irish and Italian.
Mm-hmm.
So our neighborhood was like something that you see out of a movie. Everyone was out on the street
Yeah.
corners.
Yeah.
Half the people were gangsters, half the people were city workers.
Yeah. You
So
become one of those.
it was either you took a path,
or you become a priest.
or you become a priest. We did have a
Do
few of
that.
those, because I did go to Catholic school my whole life. But you took a route and you went with it. So when everyone reached a certain age, kind of people went their separate ways. I just was like involved with a group like that, but I had never been arrested.
Mhm.
So I was still eligible. So I took the test, like I said. I got called. They started the process, and I was the
Well-
first one out of all my friends to
You
get a
prefer
badge.
you proverbially just went home when like I always look at my life like I had a lot of people around that I probably could have went another way with, but I was always taught as a way with the good parents that I had to just kind of leave at the right time.
Right.
You kind of seem like maybe you were around that, but you
I was.
ultimately left it, you know?
So it was getting to a point where I said I have to make a decision. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
Do I want to go with these guys? And don't get me wrong, these people are the salt of the earth, in my opinion. These were real
Mhm.
neighborhood guys
Mhm.
that were like my best friends growing up. And just because I became a cop didn't mean that I lost my ties with these guys.
Right.
It was just, obviously a little different, but these still guys were my lifelong friends forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Still
What
to this day.
What about you, Pat? What made you become a cop? Because I mean, we kind of talked a little before the show. Like, you come across to me as someone that lifelong. Father was in that world.
My father was a FDNY lieutenant. He did 32 years. I had an older brother that was in the FDNY.
Yep.
I had another brother that was a cop, switched over to the fire department. And
Why didn't you?
I'll be honest, I didn't like heights. I do everything a cop could do.
you
I'm not
got
a big fan of heights. My older brother, when he graduated the academy, they put on a show on ladders and that. And I said, that ain't for me. But I took the test because my father filled out the application and mailed it in and made me get out of bed that day and take it.
Got you.
And he said, you don't have to take the job, but it's something to fall back on.
What
if
did you
ever
want
need
to
it. And
do?
I'm glad he
You have to
did.
understand, Jeff, back in that when me and Pat were getting into this world, there was no requirement for college. If you had a GED,
Mhm.
you could become a cop or a fireman.
Okay.
That changed later on in the life.
So it was a lot
Later on.
easier in a way.
It was a lot easier. So a lot of guys that were on the street just were regular guys,
Let me
took
ask
the
you,
test and they became cops.
Did you look at it kind of like the military in a way?
It's a paramilitary organization. They try to keep it like
But
The
you kind
military?
of felt like I don't really want to go to the military, but this is kind of as simple as well to get in, and this is kind of
I really didn't have that in my head. My goal was to get a job
right.
that had a steady paycheck
Yeah.
and
Right.
with a pension.
Sure.
I mean, it was as simple as that. I am
Absolutely.
not going to sit here and say I had any aspirations to be a
Mhm.
law enforcement. I didn't. I needed a
It
job.
just worked, and
Yeah.
it was a good decision, right?
Oh, the best ever.
Well, they treat it like the
Lifelong-
military
lifelong
when you
friends.
go in. They treat it like that. My
Absolutely.
first day reporting, we went to a school. I think it was the Fashion Institute to fill out paperwork.
That's
I-
down here, isn't it?
No, there was another one. I believe it was the
Okay.
one in Brooklyn.
Okay.
I'm not sure, honestly, but I went up to a sergeant. I said, hey, do you know where the seat is? He goes, who the hell do you think you're talking to? Hey, it's sir. It says in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So that was my first taste. He told me, he didn't even tell me where the seat was. I had to find
It's
it.
the hierarchy.
He just ripped into
Chain
me.
of command.
It was he wanted you to start off
Chain of command was
in a
very
military
important.
atmosphere. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Now, did you, Mike kind of told his story. Do you always want to be a cop or be kind of like your brother and your father? And-
Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to be, but I was young. I had no really direction at the time what I wanted to be, and then it popped up my list number. I was really young. I was 20 years old, and I got on the job at 20 years old in a couple months. 20 in 3 months. So I was young, but I took it, and I think it's the greatest decision I ever made.
And you ultimately became a sergeant, then you became a lieutenant,
Yes,
and you've been around a lot. A lot of your early years were in Manhattan.
I worked in Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah.
I went to the South Bronx.
Yeah, tell me about that. You told me that.
I
So-
did 3 years there on the midnight tour, and it was
Wow.
insanity up there.
And that's
Place was
arguably
crazy.
the worst neighborhood in the city, right?
Yes, one of the worst.
What kind of things do you see?
I saw everything. We saw a lot of shootings, a lot of child neglect, child abuse, bodies in the trunk of a car.
Mhm.
On a car fire, the fireman popped it. The guy was bound and gagged, and he was killed. And
all narcotics, narcotics also in the Bronx.
That was a guy
Yep.
that he came into some money from a lawsuit, and he decided he was going to go up to the Bronx and invest it in drugs.
Get into the drug game.
And he talked to these guys. I'll put up the money. You move the drugs. And they said, okay. When he brought the money, he ended up in the trunk of his car.
So I mentioned I've talked to DEA, FBI. They've talked to me about seeing that kind of stuff for the first time. They've talked about seeing people hang from bridges, stuff like that. When you saw that, was that like the first time you saw that sort of thing?
No, I saw it as a younger cop, and when
What's that like, seeing that?
That is, it affects you hard. You go home, you think about it and everything, but then it's sad to say, but after you see it a while, it doesn't bother you anymore. It just becomes common nature.
But there's got to be a part where if it's a criminal doing it to another criminal, it's kind of like, well, that's the life they chose. But I guess when you start to see it being done to, let's say, an innocent person,
well, yes, you feel
like
terrible if it's an innocent victim or somebody killed in a car accident. You do feel bad,
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the job hardens you, and you become a little complacent.
Desensitized, right?
Absolutely desensitized.
And Mike, you were in Brooklyn right away.
I was
kind of right in. You were right on Beth Avenue.
Right on Beth Avenue. I kind of had it's an interesting. My career is an interesting one because I did what I call a reverse career. So when I say that, I mean my career started out in better places and
got worse.
Got way worse. You should start out in the bad places.
No, is that normal?
And as your career goes on, get a nice.
Because I've heard
I was reversed. I finished my last 14 years on this job, doing the most dangerous job you could ever do on this. I've heard, and I don't know. Again, this is something that I've just heard from police officers in, let's say, Philadelphia. They're going to put you in with a partner in the worst, the 24th district, the worst, right?
Kensington,
right.
So you're saying for you, it was kind of they threw you in a neighborhood pretty close to you.
Yes.
Probably knew some people,
See, the way I think about the 6-2 is it was a very interesting place to work, but it wasn't an area where you had violent crime every single day. So it was considered a soft precinct. 6-2 was considered a soft precinct because all the crime was gangsters.
How do they decide that, though? Is it just random?
When you go to the police academy, there's two ways to do it. When you go to the police academy, when they give you a sheet and they say, where do you want to go work? And everyone puts what's called a dream sheet. You put it down, it means nothing unless you know somebody. Yeah. Pretty much whether you know somebody or not. If you don't know anybody, you're going to the precincts that start with a 7 or 4.
Right.
That's the Bronx. That's Brooklyn North,
East New York. Right.
Manhattan North. Those precincts off the bat, your boots to the ground. You're in the mix. I got very lucky. I hadn't made any phone calls or anything. I just got put to the 6-2. So what happened was, I didn't want to be in uniform. It was just a thing I did not like to wear a uniform. So immediately I started to get my reputation up, and I went right into plainclothes. And pretty much 90% of my career is undercover. Yeah,
I want to ask you about that. Let me ask you, Pat. Do you think he talked about kind of the decision of where they put you? Right, you could be in a, let's say East New York, somewhere like that, or you could be in where he was. Do you think that kind of shapes an officer's career in a way about where you go?
Yes. I think Mike was a tremendous cop and supervisor. We worked together when he was a sergeant. I was a lieutenant. Mike could do it all. But I think that you want to start out in a busy place and learn. When I came on the job in 1986, we had all Vietnam veterans who were getting near the end of their career, and they trained you. And that was priceless. You know what I'm saying? They could read people. They knew they were in Vietnam, and then they were on the streets of New York through it all.
Right.
So they would train us. We had some great training detectives in where I started. His nickname was Bazooka Bob Rufo. You had a guy, Kit Brady, Jimmy Lee. I just want to say their names because they were legends and they taught us well. But I think working in a busy place shapes you
absolutely
for the rest of your career.
And don't get me wrong, the cops in those places that Pat's talking about, they shit on the other precincts. Like if you work in the South Bronx and then somebody else works in someplace that's a cushy precinct, the cops will let you know. Like if you say, "Oh, I work here," they're like, "It's a fucking joke where you work. Come to a real precinct. Right. You're a shitbag. You do nothing. What do you do? You handle a jail."
There's a hierarchy level of cops.
They really try to give you the business.
Right.
They really try to give you the business. But on the same token, it all depended on the individual cop, because you could find it anywhere you work. and it can happen. Because when you see shootings happen, they're not always in the worst precincts. A lot of the homicides, a lot of the robberies, they happen in the better precincts, and those are the precincts where the guys get lax, and they don't see it coming. So to me, it depends like where you go out of the academy. Sometimes you feed it to the fire. People, like you said earlier, they never seen anything like that before. These people are from Suffolk County. Next thing you know, they're in Flatbush Avenue, and they're seeing things that they only read about in books.
You've seen a movie, yeah.
I've seen a movie.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to be trained properly.
It's important.
By veterans.
Your initial training.
I think over the last bunch of years, the department has lost that. They don't have the veterans. They're all fleeing the job. They're fleeing to other departments. They're retiring. They're getting out of the city. They get no support in this city.
Right.
From the top down, they get no support. And you know, the criminal, they roll around with a guy, a deadly guy. They roll around with the guy.
And they got to worry about
the guy's out tomorrow, and you see him again. So
yeah.
Years ago, when you got trained by somebody, they had experience. That guy was a cop, just like you were. But that, for all intents and purposes, that guy was the police commissioner to you, because anything you did went through him. His initial training really could shape you, unless you left the precinct really quickly. But if you spent time there, a couple of years there, those initial guys that you meet are basically what kind of cop you're going to be, in my opinion.
So are they, there's obviously a lot of issues as to why some of the situations are the way they are now, but are they still, you mentioned the bazooka guy, these people that are these legendary cops that people know about in different boroughs, and are they still training these people the right way? Are there still people like that left?
I feel that you go to the academy, you get your basic training, and you're going to be taught what the academy instructors teach you.
Yeah.
What is not necessarily going to be what a real veteran on the street would teach you.
And
I'm not knocking the academy guys. They have a job to do too.
Yeah.
But you need to learn from veterans. And that, I think, is gone from the NYPD.
Sure.
There's no one left. Who would stay after 20 years?
Yeah, absolutely.
You see what's going on.
It's too volatile. In the academy, we would have a training guy come in who had like a specific expertise. He'd come in and he'd give a lecture. And then literally the second he walked down, the door closed, our instructor would say, forget everything that guy just told you. That's bullshit. That's what they want to tell you, but that's not how it is on the street.
Right.
So coming out of the academy, you were like, what the fuck, man? I just went through 6 months of training, and the first day you get to a precinct, Pat, am I wrong? They say to you verbatim, forget everything you just learned for those 6 months.
Yeah.
Let's go out and
it's like a mind fuck.
It's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep.
It's a mind fuck.
Well, they're teaching what the city wants them to teach, and everything by the book. And it's not always that way on the street,
They want to cover themselves. They want to say they trained you. If somebody was to go rogue or do some stupid shit, they want to say, here's our training curriculum.
This is what we told you.
This is what we told you. That's not what we told you.
You took it in your own hands.
That's on you.
And that's why we talked a little bit about, you talked to me about, you said if you're in the department long enough, you're going to be sitting in an office like this.
Oh boy. Yes.
Saying guilty, not guilty. Because you got these internal boards that are, if a citizen calls in and says, Officer Mike did something, they got to review that shit.
Yeah, they're obligated. So this is the philosophy I always had, and this is the philosophy I always told everybody that I supervised. If you go out and you're an active guy and you go out and do your job, you cannot be afraid to be called into internal affairs, inspections, CCRB, because you cannot do your job correctly and get in the mix and arrest the right people who we're targeting. Let me not use the word targeting, but who are committing the crimes without being in front of one of these with your hand in the air and the hand on the Bible.
Absolutely.
That's civilian complaint review board is a joke. It's political appointments. You go down, you could have 20 years in the streets, in the worst streets in New York City, and you have a 20-year-old kid out of college, 22 years old, telling you how you should have the job.
Using it as a stepping stone.
Has no clue about the neighborhood you're in or what you did.
It's ridiculous.
And it's just it's all political, the civilian complaint review board. It's a joke.
The ruination of the police department is the second that politics seeped into the police department is when everything went to shit. And also a big turning point, I feel, I don't know if Pat will agree with me, a big turning point in the police department for me was when they changed the qualification that you had to have a college degree to become a cop. Once that wave of guys came in, I felt like the department went to shit.
But a lot of people would think, in a way, that would enhance the department. You'd get smarter people, more qualified. But in the end,
it's tougher street guys.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
You had guys that grew up on the street and can say, I had guys on my anti-crime team that we would just, look at a scene and we could be like, that's going to happen, and we can get ahead of it for, and it was safer for us. We can get nobody could get a jump on us. where you got these guys that were like college students, and I'm not knocking. Of course, I want everybody to have a college education. It's the right thing to do, but they weren't coming out with that savvy street smart. They were coming out and they were clueless. And of course, there were exceptions, but it seemed like they were just so lost.
There's a certain level of school of hard knocks you have to
Absolutely.
to do that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
You can't just throw. It's like a babe in the woods. You can't just throw someone out
The
there.
first time you're rolling on the ground having a fist fight with somebody, it should not be when you're a cop.
And I think, Mike, a lot of the things that we see, today with some of the police involved shootings that have been out there, a lot of the time it's younger officers that have not necessarily been trained. They don't know how to react. They're skitsy. They're too quick to put their hand on their gun. And before you know it, you're putting people out in some of the most dangerous places in America, and shit happens.
It also depends, to me, how the story is covered. The initial interpretation of any police-involved shooting, especially in the last decade or so, it's always been wrong.
Yeah.
The initial story that comes out to the media and what goes around is it couldn't be further from the truth. And so many times the general public, they get their information from the wrong sources, and then it comes out the real story, but then they don't want to. They don't want to report it.
And that's what I find.
It's not a good story. They'd rather have the controversy.
That's what I find with a lot of the stuff that we see is they don't ever track back on it, right? They don't ever go back and say, hey,
and if they do, it's on page 30 of the
it was, the subject was shooting out of his window, and you don't ever really hear about it.
Listen, I would never second guess a cop, and anybody that does is crazy, because until you're in them shoes, you don't know. I hear interviews on the news after shooting, the most ridiculous thing said, why didn't they shoot him in the hand? Why didn't they shoot him in the leg? You know what it's like when you're in a life and death situation? You're breathing heavy, you ran a block, and you think you're going to die. You're not going to go home to your wife and kids. You shoot them in the leg. Well, every department trains to shoot in the center mass to eliminate the threat.
Absolutely.
People are in a misconception with that.
Yeah.
You eliminate the threat, because you could shoot them in the arm, he could still kill you. You could shoot him in the leg, he could still kill you.
Absolutely.
So also, the second guessing, if you want to be second guessed, join the police.
Also,
department.
throw in the fact that the subject could be on PCP, some sort of drug.
Dealt with it many times.
When you're on PCP, you have human strength. You
literally have superhuman strength.
It would take an army to take a guy.
The first thing that you're going to see if someone's out on PCP, and anyone
they're naked,
anyone who is in law enforcement, narcotics, and gang squad who deal with real people who are on drugs, you see somebody running down the block half naked or completely naked, you're in for a fight,
acting like they're on fire.
Yeah, why don't you taser them? Taser them. Well, guess what?
They don't feel it.
That don't work all the time, and it doesn't. It might not penetrate your clothes. So I taser him. Next thing, he's on top of me. You know what I'm saying? People think, oh, taser him, everything's going to work. When you're out there in a life and death situation, things don't go the way.
I mean, I've been fascinated, and I don't want to get into it's just fascinating the shit you hear from some of these people. It's you'll see an individual literally grabbing for an officer's gun, and they'll say, "Well, he didn't do it. He's grabbing for the dude's gun."
Right, but the general public doesn't understand that a person grabbing for your weapon, that is deadly physical force.
Of course it is.
So, in other words, it's you or him. If he was to get that weapon away from you, you're done. He's not grabbing it to run away with it. He's grabbing it to do bodily harm to you.
You'll find very few politicians that'll stand up for what's right. Even if they think it's right, they'll throw you right under the bus because it's popular, and they don't want to be saying the wrong thing and lose the vote. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I'd be remiss, Pat, if I didn't ask you, because it's seemingly a topic that we ask every guest that we speak to. You were in Midtown, Lower East Side, all these different places. John Gotti, you ever have any run-ins, seeing him, anything?
I saw him. I actually sent down to the 5th Precinct one night. I had to work a gang order. Having a problem with the gangs down there. And we're sitting on Mulberry Street, and we see people coming out of a restaurant with all this food and everything, and they're all going to the Ravenite, to the social club. Little time goes by, we see a crew come out. They block traffic. They put him in his car, almost like it was the president. It was John Gotti. I seen him outside court one time. I had an arrest, and he was coming out of court for one of his trials. But I used to see a lot of his crew around the Garment District, 35th Street, Jack the Nose, the Miko. The two Gambino brothers had the business there. Friends of mine used to see Junior Gotti around a lot, but that was my interaction with them. You see him around. But
with Jackie Knows, he's still alive today.
I know.
He's a Brooklyn guy.
Jackie
Knows. What about you, Mike? What was you? I mean, you were obviously in the 6'2". You were, the Bath Avenue. That's about as mob mobbed up as you can get in that time.
It was definitely you know, sectioned off in different crews at Bensonhurst. You know, you had your Bath Avenue crews, you had your crews down like in the Bay 40th, you know, streets. You had Cropsey. You know, you had your different, you know, your different groups that were always you know, at odds with each other. You had back in the early 90s.
Well, that's what I want to.
Bensonhurst had all the social clubs. 18th Avenue was one after another. Everyone was sitting outside. The neighborhood was, you know, a different place.
We also had, and I think it's a little different from maybe downtown where you were, Pat, but you had Bath Avenue crew, Bay Parkway boys,
Cropsey.
You had all these young kids that
Bay
were
40th.
the farm teams, right?
Yeah. These kids were growing up and they were idolizing these guys.
Oh yeah.
And all they wanted to do was follow in their footsteps. You know, and some of them, you know, were hotheads, and you know, you had a lot of incidents in that area where, you know, people were getting beat up, getting shot, and it was all for you know, for turf.
And those young kids were ruthless because they wanted to impress the Columbos, the Bonanos, or whoever.
There's nothing worse than a kid trying to impress somebody with what he'll do. He's unprotected.
He's willing to do whatever, and you don't have much. You're willing to do what you have to do.
Absolutely.
I got to ask, Pat, 9/11. That's a day that, and obviously, any cop, fighter remembers. For you, it was a very personal time, right?
Yes.
Tell me about that day. I mean, what was that day like for you?
Well, I actually worked the night before. I used to sit in these wealthy people at their residence overnight on Monday nights. And
really?
I got out of on like right off of Lexington, upper 60s, lower 70s. We did it 7 nights a week. My night was Monday. I came out. It was September 11th at 6 in the morning. I drove down the FDR Drive. I remember it was beautiful out.
Mm-hmm.
I went home. I was living in Brooklyn again at the time with my wife. I went to bed. Obviously, I worked all night. She wakes me up. She says, a plane just hit the Twin Towers. So I said, oh, what, a small plane?
Mm-hmm.
She said, no, I think it's a big plane. So I got up. Obviously, I started watching the news. They called every New York City cop, fireman, EMS into work. So I started getting ready for that. My parents called. They said, oh, we just talked to your brother. He's about to head down there. Little time went by. I see the building collapse. And I just, my wife to this day will say, you knew. I just had a sick feeling like I knew.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. I had a terrible feeling.
Because you knew that, like, I mean, I think anyone that, I was 12 years old, but I remember hearing when you saw the size of the
Ground Zero.
Yeah.
The pile.
No, or you just, even when the first plane hit,
Oh.
it wasn't a small plane.
No,
You could tell.
Once you saw
The
what
size
happened,
of
you knew
the gaping hole in the side.
it
of
was
the
a terror attack. And then when the second one came in, it just confirmed.
You just
it.
knew
I mean,
it, right?
You know, I mean,
But you're saying you had a feeling.
I just had a feeling because my parents had called me, said, your brother's called us. He's on his way down. A little bit of time went by, and next thing the building collapsed. I just got a sick feeling, you know. I went into work, thought we would go down there. They told us we're not going down there because they were worried what else could happen around the city.
Absolutely.
And what if we abandon the rest of the city? People might, you know, break into stores. There might be everything.
Looting. Yeah.
So by that night, my older brother, who had just retired, he got information that my brother's company was missing. So I went home. Next morning, I picked up my parents. I went to my sister-in-law's house. My brother had 3 young kids. You know, we stayed with her for a while. And then about, I think it was 2 or 3 days after 9/11, I was down on the pile. Went by the morgue. I knew some cops there. We left information in case anything showed up. Then I went on the pile for like, I think I was like over maybe 3 or 4 days I was on the pile. And then they sort of pushed us away. They wanted basically FDNY, emergency service cops, some people like that. They had military guys with guns on the pile, you know, guarding it, not letting you on. So, you know, yeah, it was I was also at the one in 1992, the first attack.
Sure.
I was there within 20 minutes because I worked at Midtown. And
Right.
Ironically, I was there and both of my brothers there. One brother was a fire marshal, and my brother that passed in 9/11, he was there as well. But yeah, so it's just crazy. We thought that was bad in 92. We didn't know what was coming.
Unbelievable. Well, may your brother rest in peace.
I appreciate it.
That's
Thank you.
That's you know, obviously the whole country. Like I said, I was a kid, right? I didn't know what was going on, but you know, we look back on that day now, and I don't think we ever truly. I mean, we talked to a lot of people, but like people like yourselves, just regular. You're New Yorkers in the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're obviously cops, so you're about as New York as it gets. What was your experience like on that day?
That day, I received a phone call. I was sleeping in bed. I was laying in bed. My girlfriend at the time called me. She's not my wife, but she called me. She said, a plane hit the building. Same thing, same type of situation. Started calling the precinct. They said, everybody report to the closest precinct where you are at this moment. Mm-hmm. So even though at the time I was working in Brooklyn, I was in Jersey, so I said I have to report to the precinct in Staten Island, which I did, and it was so surreal because nobody knew what to do. So it's true what Pat said. They wanted to secure all the boroughs
Because I guess you didn't think like there could be other attacks.
They wanted us to make sure they had personnel in all parts of the city, in case there was going to be a copycat, in case it was not finished, it was going. So they put us all over Staten Island that first day. But by the next morning, everybody was on the pile. And let me tell you something. When you seen something like that, didn't matter where you worked, didn't matter what unit you were in, everyone was running to that pile to try to help. And it's true. We lasted one day on the pile, and they started throwing us out because they wanted only.
Well, you also had fear of the Deutsche Bank was going to collapse. They had
there was a lot of factors.
Sending out alarms. You're under it, and the building looks like it's going to fall.
Yeah,
the integrity of that building.
You'd have
was
to get off the pile when they thought that was going to fall. But
they only wanted FD, ESU to start because we were on the bucket trail. Like the bucket would start as deep in the pile as we could, and they were filled with rubble, and
one by one.
You would just keep passing the buckets, and everyone was like, who had their face mask, their gas mask behind their head, who wasn't wearing it, it was a complete shit show. It took days to really get any kind of organization. No one knew who was working, what time you were coming in, what time you were going home. It was just constant people around the clock.
But you almost think about it like, how do you prepare for that?
You don't prepare for it, but like I said, I think Pat alluded to the fact earlier, you become a cop, and then it's like you pride yourself on nothing could phase you, and like you always want to show like this persona where nothing bothers you. But 9/11 was beyond that. There was no way to hide that. Like that was the most horrific thing, and even the most hardened guys were emotional, and they really let it show.
But I'll tell you what, everybody responded. Everybody responded, off duty, on duty, court officers, correction officers, sanitation. Everybody responded. And when you were going down the West Side Highway, there was people from other countries with signs, "We support you," people with American flags. The country was so tight.
I think about that to this day. And I was young. I remember, you remember seeing stuff on TV, the baseball games, and I don't ever remember the country more united than that time.
It's a shame.
It's almost sad kind of looking at
That's what it took
now.
to unite the country.
Yeah. It's almost, like I said,
and even that was short-lived.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you want to know another thing? Like they put in a 9/11 commission after that to come up with a plan so it'll never happen again. And I feel like they stuck with it for a few years, and now it's totally abandoned.
Right.
Everything they put in a commission report, it's all bets are off now. So if it ever happens again, I wouldn't be surprised. Hopefully it never, ever happens again. God bless.
I mean, I think at this point it's hard because, look, again, I don't want to get political, but when you, for instance, when you have we had a guy on 2 weeks ago, DA. I mean, he was literally shot by a violent drug cartel. Government just basically told him to go fuck himself. That was it. And you look at today, anybody can come in here. We don't know who's coming in here. We don't know the type, the level of people.
As far as that's concerned, I mean, we're at that front door, and it's not good. Like we're going to just stand there and let anybody infiltrate the building, whether they're armed or not, because we're not going to just stand there like sitting ducks. We're not going to let anybody in this office get hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that quickly in a bit. I just want to kind of finish up with kind of the world of you both being cops. So ultimately, you would get. In a way, you guys both had kind of interesting careers because you kind of went to eventually Staten Island, right?
Yeah. Before that, I was an anti-crime, like Mike was saying. I was an anti-crime sergeant in Coney Island. You take a small group of like the best cops at the precinct.
Yeah.
And you patrol and you look for violent street crimes, robberies, and you also look off the reports of what kind of patterns been going on.
And you're trying to
street patterns of elderly ladies being robbed or drug dealers being robbed. And you know what? You figure out you could figure out what's going on, who's doing it, and you get to know everybody.
Yep.
So I did that in Coney Island for 9 years, and then I went to Staten Island. And my last 7 years, I did 20 off of Staten Island. Did my last 7 on, and that's where I met Mike on Staten Island. We worked together.
And you retired 2013.
Yes.
And we'll get to what you're doing now. You actually recently retired, right?
I retired 2 years ago.
I want to hear though a little bit about you were in the gang unit.
I was.
So what kind of people are you dealing with? Where are you? Are you mostly in one borough? Are you in?
We
Are you working on one group? What are you doing?
We were stationed. My office was in Staten Island. It wasn't in a precinct. It was like a nondescript building. So it was very covert, you might say.
You said you were undercover too.
We were the whole unit.
Yeah.
We had a bunch of detectives that their main priority was to target violent street gangs, and we were in Staten Island, but our cases ultimately took us, citywide. But 90% of them started out initially in Staten Island in the gangs.
Now, who are you working on most that you remember?
In Staten Island at the time when I was there, and I was there for years. It was blood sets, Crip sets. So we had some Latin Kings. We had a lot of kids that were going into. See, everybody thinks that they're in a gang, but it's really not a gang until you go into Rikers Island and you affiliate with somebody.
Right.
You go in a crew guy, and you come out a gang member.
Yeah.
Because you go into the jail and it's like, basically what neighborhood you come from is who you're going to affiliate with.
Absolutely.
And then the initiations are done in Rikers for the most part, and then you come out a gang member.
And that's still a problem today. We see it still, though. You see these, the gang takedowns. You take a couple people off the street.
Hundreds of them.
Yeah,
that's what we did. All my guys would, and I had the best group of detectives that I ever worked with in that gang squad. We targeted the high-profile gang members, and we started our cases, with our undercovers, and it would graduate up the ladder until we would get the feds involved, and then there would be joint cases between us and the feds. They would sometimes fund us and, give us money for what we needed to do. And then we would, as soon as we felt that it went up as high as we could possibly get, we would organize a tremendous takedown, and that's what you read about in the newspapers.
I'm always curious about this, and I ask any person in law enforcement that comes on here, whether it's a drug cop or whatever, FBI. In the end, all the gang people he took off the street, you know better than me that within 30 minutes, someone comes in and fills the void.
What happens
no
is
drug corners ever shut down for any period of time.
What happens is you make a tremendous takedown, and it causes what's called a vacuum.
Yep, absolutely.
And what happens is the next guy in line steps up and takes over.
Do you look at it though? Like what I'm trying to say is, do you look at it like you're filling a cup up and you turn the water off for a second, but eventually the water's got to come back on?
Yes, I do. I do think that,
because in the end, whether you work for the feds, the state, the local, whatever, it's all the same end game, isn't it?
We took down the biggest crews, and it, in all honesty, meant absolutely nothing.
I mean, I'm asking both of you for any of this to truly change, right? It would have to be a generational thing, right? Where you would have to completely uniform things from the top all the way down.
Okay, so if they let the guys do the job, that would be how we meant to do it and how we know how to do it,
fix it in a way.
We could have a serious impact.
You hear?
Let me backtrack for a second. I didn't mean to say I felt it did nothing, because honestly, when we hit certain targets,
it was rewarding. Right.
It was very rewarding, and you would see a lot of the robberies and the shootings in that area cut down. My problem is it just didn't last.
Yeah,
it didn't last for a long time. So I take it back when I say it wasn't an impactful, takedown or an impactful arrest or impactful targets, because they only let us target certain people. We would present cases to our superiors, and they would go through the case, and they would throw it back at us sometimes. They would be like, "This is not a gang case. This is a narcotics case.
No good, right.
This is a guy selling heroin on the corner.
Yeah,
this is not what we want the gang squad to do.
Right.
We want you to give this to narcotics, and narcotics is very good at what they did. They handled a lot of major cases too. They were excellent. But unless there was a major violence attached to it, in addition to drugs, our superiors would throw it back at us, because they would never want to waste all that time and man hours and money on somebody who's going to do 2 years in prison.
Right. It's not worth it. Right.
Unless they get strict with the sentences of the jail time, crime's never going away.
Absolutely.
When you saw Giuliani was the mayor, the street was spotless. This city was incredible. And Bloomberg kept it up. De Blasio dumped it all down the drain. All the hard work the NYPD did, all these guys that sacrificed, he dumped it all down the drain.
Do you think, though, it's maybe also the level of criminal in a way? Because I've talked before on our show about how, back in the 80s and 90s, right, gangsters were scumbags, but they weren't I mean, these kids today are ruthless, depraved people.
Gangsters back in the day,
Back then they had some
pride.
ethics.
They had pride, and they
don't want you around.
They
right?
wouldn't target civilians.
Yeah.
They had a very business-like way.
Do you think that has something to do with it? That's what I'm saying. Like, in a way, like these kids today don't give a fuck about anything.
Well, they know
that generation
no
is
punishment.
And there's no punishment.
There's
right?
no they know it. These people know it. The criminals, they know what's going on. They see the news. They hear from their friends. They know there's no punishment. There's no.
I preferred when the gangsters ran the neighborhood.
Yeah, because in the end, they didn't want Pat or Mike around, right? They don't act like an asshole.
If you were around, they'd want to take care of you and get you out. Yeah, with a smile.
It's almost weirdly, in a way, what I'm kind of thinking is, in a weird way, you were talking about the people that taught you, right?
Yeah.
Well, in a weird way, the young gangster, he's learning from an old guy, and eventually those old guys, they go to jail, they die, and now you look at today, the mob, it's a mess. There's nothing going on. There's no, and there's like in a weird way,
there's no honor,
there's no old school.
They veered a long way from Carlo Gambino days and things like that.
Just kind of in a way,
not that he was a saint, but things were different. There was rules, there was regulations, and they followed them.
And all
you ask anybody in Howard Beach when John Gotti was alive and flourishing, how the neighborhood was compared to when all these guys disappeared. It's night and day.
I've gotten in arguments about that because people always say, "Oh, well, yeah, but they were extorting people and they were doing this," and I said, but. Again, go to those neighborhoods and look up crime stats specifically. Do you think anyone will walk down the street like they do now in front of the Ravenite?
The neighborhood police itself.
Listen, I'm not condoning what they did, but no, I don't think they would do that.
You think if someone walked by,
they wouldn't commit a crime in front of? No,
they
would
do something like that.
No.
I mean, so you retired what year?
2020. Sorry, 2020. Yeah,
right. 2000. You're just coming in.
2020. My bad.
2013. So. I want to kind of talk about now. So you ultimately there's a reason you're here, and like I said, whenever we come in, there is now security. I actually come through the Barstool when they were on Broadway. Mm-hmm. The only security they had was Ebony.
Yep.
She would get you up, and I mean, I remember there used to be lunatics coming in.
Ebony can handle herself.
Oh yeah,
don't be fooled.
No, Ebony's
from the Bronx. She ain't gonna get pushed around.
I got to tell you, she might be tougher than you guys.
I don't know about that, but she's definitely handle herself. I wouldn't. Let's just say I would not mind having Ebony cover my back if need be.
Yes. So what you ultimately do is you create, in essence, both of you, a security company.
Yes.
And your job is private security.
Yes.
You work for companies maybe similar to this. You may do security work for. Do you ever do any like celebrities, stuff like that before this? Like, what were you doing before?
I've done wealthy people. I used to do some work. It was actually for another company years back. For a guy who was a billionaire. Sometimes we would follow him and his girlfriend when they went out to dinner. Sometimes I would ride in the truck with him.
You just kind of watch.
Sometimes I would stay if he stayed overnight in a hotel in the room next door, or always on the same floor. But we would stay with him, and I did that for a while. And I told you I did a family on the Upper East Side. Mm-hmm. We stayed with them. We were very nice people, actually. And you just get used to how to deal with these people and how to protect them without suffocating them.
Absolutely.
I was Hugh Hefner's bodyguard.
Get out.
Back in the 90s. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wait, hold on.
Lenny Balls might want in on this.
What happened was.
Does he know this?
I don't know.
What happened was this.
Wow. Wait, hold on a second.
Hold on, let me get into the story.
You were Hugh Hefner's bodyguard?
Yes. Wow. Among other guys. It was our crew.
Yeah.
So what happened was we were all just regular, working, and cops are hustlers. You have side gigs, you have night jobs. Everyone's doing what they got to do to make ends meet.
Absolutely.
Don't get it wrong. Cops are big hustlers. So a friend of mine had a company, and I was a relatively young guy at the time. I was probably maybe 26, 27, and Hugh Hefner would come, and he had an office in Manhattan, and he would come periodically to New York. And when he came, he obviously needed armed guards. He'd come with all the girls.
How often was he coming?
He was coming about once, I would say once every 2 months. But this lasted a couple of years. So every time Hugh Hefner would come to New York, my crew, we would be assigned to bodyguard him. And we would take him to the clubs. And he would like his little Jack Daniels, and we would take him to the club, and he would fizzle out, at like 10 o'clock at night. And then he'd be like, I want to go back. And then we would have to sneak. And then all the girls would ask us to sneak them out to the clubs after he went to bed. A couple had to stay behind because they were sleeping with him in his room. But of the other girls that were not in the room with him, they would ask us to sneak them out and take them all over.
No, at the
city.
time, you're married?
I was not married at the time.
What did your girlfriend think about that? Was she worried at all?
You know what? It was probably the safest gig I could have done because it was such a great job that we were told in the beginning, the only way you're going to lose this job is if you hit on the girls. And, you know, you don't want to mess with anybody's money.
Yeah.
So we kept
great.
it straight and narrow. And it was probably one of the most rewarding things we could do because we really saw behind the scenes. We took them to all these places and they would always have their private VIP rooms, and we were
That's
responsible
fascinating
for making sure they got back back to the hotel.
Did he wear his bathrobe out to the?
Yeah.
clubs?
Anyway.
No, he didn't.
What did he wear? Because I never seen him in anything.
He always wore like suits or like these like tuxedos with like strange colors, and
yeah,
he had a lot of eccentric outfits and stuff.
It's a nice guy.
And he
right?
would like to have porn on in the room, and he didn't know how to turn it on because he's an old guy at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was already an older guy.
Yeah.
So he would
So he just like have it on in the background.
He'd be like, one of you guys go back to my room, turn on porn. And then when
Wait for him to walk.
So when he walked in, it was on.
Uh-uh.
Yeah, because he didn't want to fiddle with the
That's
remote.
funny.
He didn't know how to do it. He literally didn't know how to
So he
turn
would
it on.
like fall asleep to it, you're saying?
I don't know what the fuck he did. He went home with the girls and he had porn on the TV. I was
That's
in the room with him. Once we put him in the
That's
room, we
funny.
shut the door. Like I said, Pat said we'd be in the room next to him, but we wouldn't be in there.
Did you ever hear him?
No, never heard him.
That would have been awesome.
Never heard anything.
Was he a nice guy?
He was very
Stern.
He didn't really have too much communication with us. He went through all his people that his immediate entourage to communicate with us.
Glenny Balls.
Glenny Balls. Yeah.
You got to get the fucking stories from him. That's the original only stand right there. Kids today don't even know who Hugh Hefner is, probably.
Nah, they don't know who he is.
I mean,
I'm not trying to drop names. I'm just saying it's just one of the
That's
prominent people
awesome.
that I bodyguarded. After
So you never went like. I mean, you'd have to at some point say, I mean, for all this, you got to bring me to the mansion once, right?
He did invite us to the mansion once, not directly, but his staff said that we were welcome to come. And it's funny you say that because one of the guys on my team
that works here?
No. That on the team when I was bodyguarding
yeah.
him, one of the guys hooked up with one of the girls.
Get out.
And then they found out and they fired all of us.
Get out.
They did.
That's how it all ended.
They got rid of us.
Wow.
And we said that was
that was the rule.
They said that was going to be the end of it.
Yeah.
And the one guy could not restrain himself.
That's
He
great.
hooked up with one of the girls.
Can you blame him though? I mean,
listen, it was what it was. He fell victim, and we all got canned.
Ruined it for everyone.
Yeah, he did.
Yep.
That's one quick question. Did you ever see Donald Trump? I mean, he's a big.
I've seen Donald Trump in Manhattan, but I never had any interaction with him.
No, never.
No,
I've seen a lot. I mean, I worked presidential details where the President Reagan went by, the Pope, Gorbachev, all sorts of people. And then working in Manhattan, you see a lot of famous
Yeah, you're on the
people.
front line for all of them, but
Ron
never.
Darling, Jackie Mason,
All these different people.
yeah. The guy from Jaws. Who's the guy from Jaws?
I know you're
still alive. It's
I know
Richard
you're talking
Dreyfuss.
about,
Yeah, people. Yeah.
Very cool. So you eventually start this security company of your own. How does Barstool come? Because like I said, I remember when Barstool didn't really have that. And as Barstool's gotten more and more big, they're starting to do live events. Dave Portnoy went from, I mean, when I met Dave Portnoy, they weren't in gambling, they weren't any of that stuff. He was still kind of still building it in a way. They just come to New York. When does that happen? And like I said, did you guys know what Barstool was?
I did know what Barstool was. I wasn't the follower of Barstool that I am now.
Yeah.
Obviously working here, but we got a call and we were solicited to do a security job out in
Islanders playoff
out in Nassau County at Frankie Borelli's restaurant.
Yep.
The Islanders were playing the Bruins. It was a big rivalry.
Was that the Stu thing?
Yes.
He was like screaming.
So what happened was Stu was screaming. It was getting wild. The crowd was getting wild. So they said, you know what? Let's get some guys in here. So me and Pat took the job. We went there. We started meeting people. Like some of the first people I met in Boston were like Stu, Avery, Za.
Yeah.
These are the initial people we met, we they really liked us, and we even though we were going there to do the security job, we had like a friendship going, and we were going a couple times a week because the game was going to game 7, so every night they were playing, we were working, and then we developed some sort of relationship with them, and then when Barstool deemed it was necessary to initiate full-time security.
There was some months in between.
But they called us. They said, we really like those guys. And Erica, we sat down with Erica and we had a long interview with her, and she was like, and she gave us the go ahead.
I think one of the things I noticed about you guys is you're generally with Dave, right?
Yes.
You go to Vegas, you go to college football games, you go to all sorts of things. The first time I heard about you guys initially, I knew you were here, but I didn't really know you too well. Was when I fought Jerry.
Yes.
I came in for
Yes,
the
Cyber Monday.
They wanted
Cyber
us to
Monday.
make sure that you guys didn't kill each other.
I felt
on
like
Cyber Monday.
I felt like Gravano walking into court the first day.
That was great.
And
The
I remember
Lions Den.
they said to me, we have 5 or 7 security people. I said, I don't think that's necessary. But I said, you really got security? I said, yeah, we did. There are security.
That was
I said,
Cyber
You guys
Monday,
did go
right?
at each other that day.
oh, I
Yeah.
think if you weren't there, it probably would.
Right. That would have.
Yeah.
They were smart to have that
Yeah,
because that would have escalated quickly.
We said some things to each other that,
Yeah.
that weren't.
It got a
How's the
little
relationship now?
Good.
Yeah,
I just talked to him
good.
last night. Him and I, he does his thing, I do mine, and
Mhm.
I think he's a really funny guy personally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
Rico's a fellow Staten Islander.
We get
that's
along with
Rico too.
well,
Yeah.
yes.
I had my first conversation
Yeah.
with him ever just
Yes.
before you guys. So you were around Dave a lot. I have to ask, did you ever think, so when you're in 6'2" or you're in Midtown, did you ever think that you'd be on a private jet
No,
at any
never,
point in your life?
never.
I haven't been on one yet. Mike's been on.
You
it.
haven't?
No, I do the commercial. Mike does more of the
I-
traveling.
I
I
do a
do
lot of
quite a bit,
traveling
but
with
Mike's relentless.
Like I've
He's
seen
on
you at
every
Rough
trip.
and Rowdy.
Yeah, Mike's
You
on every
do.
trip. I
Yeah.
do some of them,
Mhm.
and Mike's been on the commercial, on the private jet, and no one would ever dream that.
No.
We would have never dream. We want to,
No one would
every
ever
day
dream.
we wake up, we pinch ourselves that we
The
work.
biggest question I get about Barstool is, what's Dave like? What's Dave like? I've always said Dave has done more for me than anyone in this business ever will.
Absolutely.
Do.
I get it a lot. A lot of
Um,
people ask me, like, 'cause, things get posted on social media, very
Yeah,
popular
yeah.
forum.
Absolutely.
They'll see me in the background or they'll
Yeah.
see something and they're like, oh, what's Dave like? What's Dave like? So I mean, my take on that is I know what kind of guy Dave is. I know he's a great guy. I know he does a lot for
Oh,
small
yeah.
business. I know
Sure.
he's the heart and soul, him and Big Cat, of this company. So, if he gets some kind of bad rap in the media, I know it's bullshit. And the general public needs to know that too, because whoever's watching this, they should know that the guy's a self-made
the
guy,
media. They get a bone to pick. with
self-made
somebody,
guy,
then,
and he did it the right way,
And he
continues
doesn't,
to do it the right way.
and he's not the typical, I'm going to just say what the fuck you want to hear because you want to hear it. He's going to push back whether you're this or
Exactly.
that. And he's authentic.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
he's always been like that to me.
Yes.
If I do something stupid, he's going to call me a fucking idiot.
Mhm.
If I do something good, he's going to give me praise for it.
Yep.
But how is the private jet? Be honest.
It's excellent.
It's kind of
It's
cool.
the
right?
only way to travel. to tell you the
Yeah.
truth.
Listen, when we're with
Now I'm
them,
not on it every time.
I get
It depends on.
I've never been on one.
Right.
So
Usually when Dave lands, I'm waiting there for
Mhm.
him. But when the opportunity presents itself, I will be put on the jet with them. It's a lot easier for me.
Mhm.
But it's a unique experience.
you know the reality. We're with them a lot on weekends, and there's a lot of gambling talk and a lot of
Yes.
gambling on college
you
football
gamblers
spreads. I'll do it. We'll do a little bit.
kinda
Yeah, we
fun.
dabble in games.
Yeah. But them, they have all their college games. What's the score
Oh,
on
yeah.
this? If I get a score here, I'll cover. Blah blah. It's very entertaining. It's
Well,
fun.
I'll give you some advice. Never give Dave a bet ever.
No.
Never do that.
I don't think he would
Just-
take it anyway.
We don't give any advice on betting.
The only bet I've ever given that he took that I know of is after Rough and Rowdy, I lost. And I was speaking to Roan right as I got off the canvas. And he goes, "You're always a gambling guy. What do you like on the board tomorrow?" I gave him a play. I just thought of it right away. And it won.
And it won.
And I remember hearing on the thing, like everyone bet it. And I thought, oh, fuck, everybody's on this game's going to lose for sure. And that was the one win I had at Rough and Rowdy. But so it's been a wild experience, right?
You gotta give
It's
yourself
been the
credit.
best.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
A
It's a
lot
mess.
of people say, "Oh, just
Not
getting
easy, yeah.
yourself into that ring and having a fight with that
It's
that
guts.
magnitude, that amount of cameras, a lot of people watching that. That's not an easy.
You had
task.
people
So
rooting
don't,
against you too.
Oh,
and
yeah,
some
they-
for you. Give some
don't
for
sell
you,
yourself
some
short.
against you.
At that time, everyone hated me. And I remember when we were doing the lead up, we did
Did they
some
really
stuff.
hate you, or was it just
I think
fun to hate?
I think a lot of people, I mean, I've been kind of I've been hit or miss. I've said a lot of things about certain people. It was kind of, it all came to a head, but I think a lot of it was just for fun. But I remember Dave said to me, "You will never prepare yourself for this." And I said, "I'll be fine. I've done it." He said, "I'm telling you."
Once that
You
bell
can't-
rings, and it's a different story.
And that's what, like, anyone that watches this and says, "Oh, he can't fight" or whatever, get in that position,
Yeah.
and then say it.
You
Very
can't judge
difficult.
anybody.
It's
till you
different
do
than
it
fighting
yourself.
somebody on the street. Or,
Absolutely.
Were you nervous before?
I acted like I wasn't, but of course.
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Because I knew the difference between me and everyone else in that building was most of those fighters, people just support. Everyone in there hated me.
Right.
I'm gonna hurt your mother. I heard all sorts of shit in there, and you can't prepare for that. But yeah, I always see you guys at Rough and Rowdy. You're always at all the events.
Listen, they treat us like gold. This whole place, Dave, Dan,
yeah,
they treat us like gold, and all of the other cast and crew members. We couldn't ask for anything better. Every day when they walk by the desk, they talk to you. We bullshit with them, and on the road, they just treat us like gold.
We don't only go, with Dave and Dan.
Yeah.
We go. There's other talent in Barstool that we travel with that requires security.
Absolutely.
So it's like
Brandon, you got to get used to. You know,
he's an ornery
an acquired taste.
Yes,
but I love him.
I love Brandon.
Him and I might be good one day, and we'll sit there. We hate each other one day. We'll go in the next and talk about college football, and everything's fine.
Yeah.
I will say, and I mean this, it's rare in here that I find people that know who Jackie the Nose D'Amico is. So for me, anytime I come in here and you guys are here, I look forward to it because what I do is a little different than a lot of what other people do. So it's cool to talk to you guys. I have one or two questions before I go. I want to ask you about last week. And I feel bad for you because Dan said it right. Seems like you were waiting for kind of that opportunity.
I won't say
not waiting.
I won't say I'm waiting for it, but
you don't want
I would
that
like to be. I would like to. I can't be everywhere, so I try to make myself always available for everything I can. But let's just face it, we have a big team and everyone works, and I know everyone can handle themselves. I think Dan did a great job.
Danny did a tremendous job.
He definitely did.
That guy didn't get 2 feet in the door. Listen,
no, it was impressive how quick that guy with no shirt got.
It was a complete success.
And you know what? The guy that did it, Stein, he's an idiot. He brings in a paid actor, poses as a homeless guy.
Yeah.
This guy's 37 years old. This is his claim to fame.
Let me ask you,
the guy's basically a clown.
Did you find it a little? Were you surprised that the guy with no shirt got up here?
No, he had his shirt on. He took it off in the elevator. Yeah.
Okay.
They had a whole thing planned out. The guy came in with the shirt on.
Yeah.
They got in the elevator, took it off. He wouldn't have got into the building.
And you know what, Jeff? One thing with that, there's like when that happens, there's level of force that you use or don't use. It's same as the police department. Danny used the proper level of force to push the guy out. Could he go? Yeah, if it escalated, Danny would go further. You know what I'm saying? But
it's very easy to see what their intentions were.
There's Monday morning quarterbacks, but he did what he had to do. He pushed the guy out. He got him out in a hurry, and he responded. No one got hurt, and it all worked.
I look at that guy as like he reminds me of the kid that he only fights when he knows it's not going to get too far.
Yeah,
like he knew Dave wasn't here.
They came in. They just wanted to get that. They wanted to get that Barstool symbol on the back of their video.
And you see him. It's the same.
It was. Danny handled it perfectly. They didn't get 2 feet in the door. They were ejected. Nobody got hurt. And they got their little 5 seconds of fame. We did our job. We did what we had to do. And we move on.
Yeah, it was great work by your guy.
Yeah, he did great.
And by the way, a lot of people ran to the door too. I mean, there's a lot of people in this company
Let me tell you
love
something.
this
company. That was all hands on deck. That's how you know Barstool's a family.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to let anybody take any.
I'll tell you what. You know what I laughed at when I saw the tape is, Spider, right?
I love Spider.
He reminds me
the
of
best.
Those. I don't want to liken him to like a little dog. Like those little dogs that like they freak you out, right? He reminds me of like just a.
He's scrappy.
He came around that corner.
He went right over there. Yep. He wasn't back.
He didn't back down for a second.
Spider don't back down from anything on the road or anywhere. He don't back down.
No, he's right.
He got knocked off the ring in Rough and Rowdy holding the camera. Remember that?
Also, this was probably before you guys came here. Do you ever see the video where he pulls like someone tries to go over to talk to Dave during the thing, and you see Spider just like pulling him away? I don't know if you ever see that.
I've never.
He like intervened, and Robbie Fox goes, "Oh no, Spider!" You got to pull him away. It was impressive.
Yeah, Spider's a scrappy guy. He's a good guy to have around in a pinch.
Absolutely. The big question before we go: 5 boroughs. What's the best slice of pizza?
Brooklyn.
You have a spot? Lenny's.
Lenny's is good. There's so many to mention. I mean, if you're going by,
so let's say right now,
Staten Island has a lot of good pizzerias. So does Brooklyn.
Let's say I give you $100 and I have a car, and they say take this person to get whatever pizza he wants. Where are you going?
What do you think, Pat?
I'm going to name 3 places on Staten Island. One just went out of business. Was family owned for years. I liked it. Nunzio's on Island Boulevard. Good, But you got Lee's Tavern. You got Danino's, Campagna. They're all brick oven. To me, you got to eat brick oven right out of the oven. You can't put it in the box and bring it home.
I've heard good things about Lee's.
Lee's
Lee's
like
is an old school bar.
Old school. That
Dave
their
did
claim to
Lee's. He
fame is a
covered
clam
Lee's.
pie.
He
Everyone
did a
eats clam
review.
pie.
Yeah.
It's a good pizzeria.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
go-
I've
you go in there, it's nostalgic. It looks
Paper
like
plates,
Yep.
and
It
but
looks
the
like it
pizza's
looks the same
delicious.
for the last
See, I feel-
few
Galamar is
decades.
delicious.
I feel that way when you go to like the Fara. Or
Yeah,
like
those are all
places
staples.
like that,
Those
you
are all
know?
good places. A lot, everyone says, a lot of people talk about L&B. L&B is a different type of place. It's
Yes.
not really.
There used to be a place in Coney Island. Remember? I don't know if some Totono's.
He would close.
The guy would make 100 pizzas before I
He
got
closed.
there, but it was open when I was there. 100 pizzas a day.
And
Pull
then
the
when it
gate
sold,
down,
he shut the
closed.
gates.
That's old
But
school there.
if he stayed up until 1 or 4, whenever he ran out of pizza, he shut the door.
Have you ever seen, real quick, the pizza
Where would you go for pizza?
in New York?
Yeah.
John's.
Okay.
John's of Bleecker. But I'll say, have you ever
I
seen
feel like tourists. I feel like the pizza, a lot of pizza in Manhattan is
that's-
very
yeah,
touristy.
Joe's?
And they think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
great, and everyone's
The
coming from
original
all over the
Rays.
country and all over the world.
Let me ask you
and they think
quick,
it's good.
because this is a big thing on TikTok, Snapchat nowadays. The chopped cheese. You know what that is?
Yeah, the chopped cheese.
From what I understand,
What you mean, the Aki way?
well, no, just like a chopped cheese in general.
Oh, okay.
From what I understand, that is not a staple of New York. Like true New Yorkers, that only came around recently.
No,
that's not a
I mean,
big thing.
growing up, I never.
You never
heard of
ate it,
chopped
right?
cheese.
No.
Yeah, it's just like a fad kind of thing.
Yeah, I never heard of
Yeah.
that.
You
I thought
didn't
you were
even
talking
hear-
about when they go into the
Yeah,
delis
that-
and they make that.
in
That
Red
guy,
Hook,
that
yeah,
guy
yeah.
has that big TikTok.
Yeah,
The Aki way.
he puts
makes
it in
the-
whatever he wants.
Yeah, he puts it with
Fruit
French fries.
Loops,
He
all
puts
sorts of- yeah.
chicken fingers. That looks pretty good, to tell you the truth.
I mean, you take in what you want. He puts it in.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a McDonald's order.
Whatever you
he'll put
want,
it in
yeah,
there.
put it in there.
Shout out to that guy.
Yeah.
This is unique. This is like one of the more unique things I've done here. I think a lot of people know you here. They see you every day,
Mhm.
and they don't know some of these stories. So I think it's important to kind of tell them. Like the fact that you at one point protected Hugh Hefner, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Some of the stories you have. Just kind of you're a lifelong guy. You've been around that your whole life.
We didn't even get into a lot of the street stories of what you seen, what you did.
Well,
but-
I think for me, I always try to get people to come in the first time we tell the story, then
Mhm.
maybe get them back. And I think that would be definitely
That's
good.
what I was leading up to.
See, you're better at this than you thought. You come in here, you've never done this before.
You're the man. You're the guy
Never.
at this. I watch you.
You
I
make it
watch
easy.
you.
You make
I
it
watch
easy
you
to do.
sit down and you're
Appreciate
very
that.
relaxed. You conduct a great interview.
I'll tell you what, it's been a good day here.
Yeah,
I never thought in a million fucking years I would be in an office with him ever.
You never know what the.
You never know with this company right here.
Rico, listen, we get a good rapport with Rico. So
And he's a
you
Staten
know,
Island guy. so-
Yeah, and that's maybe part of it too. But I don't know. I just get along very well with Rico.
I learned in about 10 minutes he's a lot more interesting than I ever thought. By the way, solid shoe game.
thank
You got
you.
13s on. I love
Thank you.
that. Where's your Jordan?
He always wants me to up my shoe game.
Yeah, what do you got on? You got the wife special.
I
right?
got
He's got
what
the
are they?
dad
I don't
shoes
know.
on.
The wife bought it, right?
I bought.
By the
them.
way, let me
They're
ask you
Brooks, I
guys.
think they're
I'm
called.
so glad you said that. Oh, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you said that.
Let me
I'm
ask
gonna
you.
get a pair of sketches next week.
I have to ask quickly though. You both have kids?
Yes.
I have 4. Yes,
Would you want them to go into your world?
No,
No.
not anymore.
Not at this point.
I have 4 sons, and some of them are at that age. And
You're telling them. to do
first of all,
something.
my wife would flip. One's on the court officer's list, but he's still in college. But
What if it were the
that's
one?
a different job?
What if it were the department you grew up in?
Ah,
That's a
I
good
would be a
question.
nervous wreck every night at
You
home.
would.
I'd be sick to my stomach
Yeah.
because what goes on out there,
You want something else?
what
for
these
life.
guys go through, these guys and girls every night, it's
Yeah.
insane. And people don't realize, it's.
If you asked me that question 25 years ago, I probably would say yes. Now my answer is no.
I'm always fascinated. One of my pastimes is listening to scanners. I don't know
Mm.
why, but
Yep.
you listen to the scanner around here. It's wild.
Yeah,
And
it's
you
crazy.
hear this, you hear that.
Well-
By the way, tell me one thing before we go, and I promise we'll go. They always say something at the end, K. What does that mean?
That's just a way to let the other person know
And-
you're finished speaking.
Yes.
It's like putting a period at the end of the sentence because when you key the mic, you start to say what you're going to say. When you say K, the other person on the other end
Knows you're done.
knows that you're finished saying what
I see. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have you guys back soon. This was great, as always. Appreciate you guys watching, as always. Great episode next week. We got Chief coming on. We'll do some Chicago stuff. We'll keep the world going. Have a great Christmas, everybody.
Take
Say
care.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
This was a great
Christmas.
episode.
Have a great one.
Hope all you have a good holiday and whatever you celebrate. My blessings to you. We'll see you next week here on the Sit Down.